it's just amazing to still have your parents, into their 80s and 70s. I was born the first child of my parents' marriage. And I was born Catholic. We were a Catholic family, extension everywhere. But by the time I was 9, I was introduced to Christ. My parents left the Catholic church to another church, and then I got involved in everything church, choir, all those good stuff that we do, okay? And I realized very early as a teenager that there was something wrong with the world. Apart from the preaching we hear in church, I just knew that there was a part I needed to play. Let me give you an example. When I was in secondary school, in JS 1 and 2, there was a rave, that's the part that you're coming to puberty, girls are becoming conscious of themselves, boys are becoming conscious of themselves, and everybody is talking about boyfriend, girlfriend. That was the age I stood back, like I spoke to myself, and I said, when people are raving towards something, can you be different? And I told myself as a 13-year-old, can you use your life to prove something, like an experiment? So if everybody is excited about something worldly, because it comes with the age, because that's what everybody is doing, can you do otherwise, according to what you hear in church? Can you just follow, God's precepts, and let's see how it will come out? This was a very risky decision, if you ask me. But I did it. I said to myself, I was going to have friends, I was going to enjoy myself, but I wasn't going to enter into any intimacy and all of those things that people were excited about. I remember how much I was talked down. My friends said, I find girl like you're just doing holy, 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 even in church, right? Then I grew up, into my 20s, and of course, okay, before I even got my 20s, at 14, I got my first ever marriage proposal. 14. I still remember it like daylight. I was like, for me, it was shock. And I think that man should be, with my adult eye now, that man should have been in his early 40s. And I remember that day I was carrying my small brother, who was just 3 years old at the time, and we were in the village in December. We had gone back for Christmas. My father is a very, family-oriented person. And we were, I come from Imo State. We were in the village, and I was going with my brother to go buy something in a nearby shop with my other sibling. And this man walked up to me and asked me, whose daughter are you? And, in my being respectful, I was like, good evening, sir. And I'm like, and I pointed at our compound, that's where we are from. He said, oh, I just came back and I'm looking for your wife. And as I saw you, I knew I needed to follow you. Oh, that compound, that's a great family. And he was talking. At this point, I was very conscious. I held my baby brother. I was walking very fast. And he was following me. At the point I felt like, I don't know what's happening. But I bought what I was buying and came back. This man followed me and was talking all along. I wasn't responding. He was just talking. I came back from the US. I came here and I know there's a reason I saw you, and followed me to my compound. As I got into my compound, my parents were sitting out with his brothers. And in my head was like, good for him. Let him meet them. So I ran into the house and I was peeping from them, telling my siblings, can you imagine? My other sibling was telling them, this man has been following us, so talking about marriage and all that. That was my first encounter. And I don't blame him. I think I was almost this size, like when I was 14. As I used to tell my first daughter, she's kind of big for her age. And that was how I was, because I used to, hilariously say that I didn't grow so much afterwards. So I could imagine maybe the man thought I was already maybe 19, 21. I don't know what was in his mind. But that was my first introduction to, getting married and all that. Then I had the marriage conversation sometime when I was in my 20s. I was going to go to university because I had 2 years delay at home, battling, trying to study the sciences and arts and, trying to weather bend to my father's will and insisting on my own path. So my father said, I'm not going to answer you when it comes to this university thing, since you want to go and study something else. So I was 2 years at home. At 20, I was to get into school. By the way, I got the admission by myself. because my father was no longer interested in that sense. He was just angry. And my mother called me and said, by the time you're 22, which is by the 2 years after, I'm hoping you will get married, because that was the year she gave birth to me. My mother was 22 when she gave birth to me. So ordinarily, in her human nature mind, she was like, okay, so that's how it should be. But no, I didn't get married till I was 1 month to my 40th birthday. I'm told people are wondering, so how old is she? Oh my gosh. So I'm trying to take timelines. And I remember that Ecclesiastes 3:1 said there is a season for and time for every purpose, for everything under the sun. There's a purpose for everything. And when you're growing up, in my 20s, the last thing on my mind was marriage. Even though it was what everybody wanted to happen. Now, I'm saying the last on my mind because I was not as privileged as some people. Let me tell you what I mean by privilege. I didn't have the time to discover myself and be myself. I was overprotected, overguided, over everything. If you're a first daughter, you come from a home where you have 5 other siblings and you're always blamed for them. You take punishment for anything they do. You understand what I mean? So I was a child, but I was like a third parent. So I grew up with that kind of sense of responsibility. And it made me, growing up, things that people saw as, oh, I better relax now, we're just playing. I take it very seriously. I have always been an adult in that sense. So I became very principled, even to my own self. That has a good side, it has a downside, of course, like everything in life. But at 27, I ran away from home. I made up my mind that I was done with all of this, stay here, don't go out, don't do this. Even though I was in a choir, I was already allowed to go for choir practice back. My father is a very loving, family-centric man, but he kind of overdid it, But in my 20s, he had become a bit more understanding. You know how when children are growing up, parents are also growing up, right? So parents start understanding some things at some level. So I think that was what happened to my father. He came to a point where he became more, less discourse and all that. Growing up before my 20s, it was, you do this thing, he will flog you. The flogging was not, I like this generation. You guys, I'm not sure they flogged people like that. Like people that grew up in 80s and 90s. So I was very, very, very tied to integrity, protecting the family name. I was like the person, who should carry the family's integrity forward. And I was very conscious of that. Now, the last thing I then wanted was to get into a marriage. I know that for some people, their response might be, anybody who says, hi, I follow him and marry so that I can even leave home. But it was scary for me, right? By my personality, I was scared of taking that kind of adventure. Follow someone I do not know. I was even afraid of all of these things. They say pregnancy, all this. At the child, I used to say, I'm not sure I'll be able to do this. I'm just giving you a backstory. Now, by 27, when I left home, what happened? I had finished youth service, everything at that time, come back home. Meanwhile, I went to secondary school in Calabar. That was my first time in the South. I didn't know I'll finally come and live in New York, for instance, and get married here. I went to FGTC Calabar. Then I went to university in Imo State University. Went to youth service in Sokoto, one of my best experiences ever. I had come home. And I was asking myself, so what am I doing in Aba? I'm an Aba girl in that sense. We were raised in Aba. Even though I wasn't born there, we were born in Port Harcourt, but I went to Aba when I was 2. And every of my siblings were now further born there. I was just done with that life. I knew that at 27 at that time, I knew that there was just more to me. So the last thing I wanted to do was get married. No. I wanted to find myself. I wanted to see myself away from the shadows of my parents, away from church. It's not just any kind of church. My father is a deeper life pastor. All the people I knew were deeper life people. At a point, I had come to a point where I said, I had become resentful. I had become unsure of even my salvation. Am I doing it right? And all of that guided my 20s. I was angry. Angry at systems, angry at God, angry at certain things. I just couldn't understand. And if you grew up in a background where you ask questions and you don't get answers, you understand what I mean? Or you get condemnation. Let me not say you don't get answers, but you get answers like, why are you so worldly? Why are you fixated on just doing this? You know? So I needed to leave all of that behind. So I took a chance. I took a chance to leave home that year because a friend of mine was to get married in Lagos. My best friend actually in university. And interestingly, that was the person through whom I met my husband over 20-something years ago for the first time. They were friends. So I was, because I was her friend, I was also friends with them, sort of, but I wasn't really close to him. That was my first encounter. So I want to tie this up to see how destiny bounces back. So my father had refused that I would go for that wedding because it was in Lagos, because, I was going to do the fitting in Port Harcourt with my friend, and he had seen the outfit. It was worldly. It's not something he wanted me to wear. He didn't just want me to go. But I made up my mind that I was going to leave. One early morning, I stole out of the house and left to Lagos. And then the rest became history. I didn't come home again for 12 years. Yes, I told myself that I was going to find me or nothing. So there are certain things in life there are certain stages in life that you get to and take some tough decisions. But the truth is that some people never take some tough decisions. And that also, because every time I think about it, what if I had stayed home, wait for my father to get me a job? Because he kept saying, don't worry, I will just cook in the morning, afternoon, night. 27, done with youth service. What will I be doing in Aba? I did not learn trade. My parents were both, in the corporate world. My mother was a teacher. Which job will I do? But they won't let me be. And I was done with church. I went to university where they would look at the skirt I'm wearing. And they will call my father and say, Pastor, we saw your daughter today. Her skirt wasn't so long. She's becoming worldly. And they will call me. They will say this and that. So I was done with all of those familiar spirits. You know what I mean? Yes, so I needed to leave. I took a turn. Thinking about it now that I'm, a bit more grown, I used to wonder, who gave me liver? Because I went to that wedding. After the wedding, it dawned on me that where will you go and stay? Your father is angry now because he will discover that you have gone. You finally went to that wedding. He said you shouldn't go. And so I started scheming with my sister, my younger sister. What do we do? Long story short, we called one of my distant cousins we haven't seen in years since we were children, but they live in Lagos. You know how Lagos is. You must have relatives somehow. There must be somebody connected to you somehow that lives in Lagos. So we called him and he was amazed. Oh, really? You're done with university? Oh my God. Okay, so where are you people? He came and picked us. We were like, oh my God, finally. We went to stay with him and his family for about 2 weeks. And then we were job hunting. I and my sister at this time, my sister followed me. That's a story for another day. My sister felt, if you leave this house, what am I supposed to be doing here? I don't die. That kind of thing. So we stayed with him for 2 weeks looking for jobs. There is no place we did not go looking for jobs. And in my mind, I was like, something just has to happen. When you throw your hands in your life into the life of Jesus, into God's hands, you will know whether you matter. So 2 weeks after, it was obvious that we had to leave my cousin's house. Certain things, and all that. Then a friend of mine, who also I met in the university as a pastor, who was also, friends with my husband now, the person with my husband now, which is Dr. Utibe, called me within that time and said he started a media company, and if only I was in Abuja, he would have offered me a job. And I said, okay, Abuja, who do I know? I and my sister started scheming again. So my sister said, this is our relative, a distant relative who lives in Abuja. Let's call him. She had his number. He called. He said, he was out of the country, but his house is there. We can go. We entered the next bus the next day to Abuja. We got there. Somebody who takes care of the house opened the house for us. We were there. We felt like, oh my God, this God is too much. But that man came back a week after. And after Like after a week, we have stayed with him now. That was the time he was saying, why not start a business? Because all I went was, I need a job. I just want a job, bank, anything. And he kept saying, and this man was a billionaire. No jokes. He had contacts. He had, he was a consultant to oil companies. He does things that had to do with coal that they used to fire the oil refinery. He was into that kind of business in the US and in Abuja. So I felt there's no way I will stay with him. I won't get a job. My mind was just job. I had never done business till that time of my life, so I wasn't thinking business in any way. But after 1 week, he kept saying, why not register a company? My mind was like 4x4. I couldn't see beyond what I had known all my life, which is go to school, come back, go to choir practice. I felt that people that start company are big people. They must have millions. So a week after, he asked us to leave his house. And I was asking myself, where will I go? Remember that pastor who told me that he had a job in Abuja? I was in contact with him that time. I was not in Abuja, but he didn't have office. It was just more of a business idea than it was a business. There was no like office or anything. So he just had ideas. So as I got there, I discovered that it's not as if there's a place I'm going to work. So that was the situation. So when that man said, leave the house, in fact, that morning we woke up and our bags were already out the door. His maid has kept it at the door. I told my sister, go back to your father. But I will survive in this town. I don't know how. And I put my sister in a bus. She went back home. And that my pastor friend came and picked me with two other of his brethren in church. They took me to somewhere very far away. In my head, I was like this, like traveling away from town. And that became my journey for 5 years of squatting with strangers, looking for jobs, trying to survive in Abuja. Anybody who lived in Abuja can understand. But I never for one day felt like, I'm tired. Let me go home. After all, my father has house. Let me at least find a place to sleep. It was so bad that sometimes that my pastor's friend or his wife will call somebody and say, please, we have somebody. Can you help us accommodate her for one night? Then we'll see, they kept passing me like that. God used strangers who had become family members to me now to take care of me all those times of wilderness. Then there's something I skipped. By the time I finished university, part of why I wanted to leave home, I had another marriage proposal when I was 24, when I just finished my final year. By the dictates of my church, when you want to marry someone, I hope it's not like that in Brooks Church, I can trust. But when you're interested in somebody, like if I'm interested in this sister and I'm a man, I cannot approach her, right? So I will go and meet Pastor Uche and say, Pastor Uche, I really like this lady. Then Pastor Uche will be the one to tell me, the status of that sister. Like, no, this sister, she's 22, her parents are this, she's about to enter university, don't talk to her yet. So that was what happened. So they had told the brother, no, she just finished her secondary school. Her parents are very learned. I'm sure she's going to go to university. So we would let you know when you should approach her. I didn't know. Innocent me. And I went through university. By my 4th year, this guy came to my school one day. My brother called me one day because I was in the same school with my younger brother and said, I saw brother so and so on campus. And he was saying he's been looking around for you. In my head, I'm like, how? Like, I know that brother as our evangelism coordinator back home. So why is he looking for me? What have I done this time? So when they finally saw him, he sat down, told me his mind. I really feel for him and said, I'm here at my own risk. Church had not released me. That was the first time I was hearing that was the system. I had put in your name in marriage committee since 5 years prior. But I'm using this story to drive somewhere so that you understand that some things you think is an advantage to you or disadvantage is all God. There's God in all of the details. So I said, okay, I was listening to him. He said, God has confirmed to me over 5 years ago that you're my wife. And a friend just told me that you're in final year and told me that if you don't make a move now and you're waiting for church, even in the next 1 year that they will not ask you to go because you would have finished your everything. What if you go there and she say, oh, I just got engaged. You didn't come early. So out of that fear was why he came to find me in school. I said, brother, did you say 5 years ago? He said, yes. And I said, but I've been coming for holiday. You haven't even as much as smiled at me for me to even know that, oh, this brother is like my friend. You know, that kind of thing. So it was shocking for me. So that made me, as a young 24-year-old, I became even angrier with church. And that anger became something that has poured. In fact, it's part of the reason why I'm standing here today. Because it became a ministry for me. It became something conscious for me. That you can't use systems and Christ to the disadvantage of people that Jesus died for. So this brother told me this. And everything, he was talking, I was listening to him because he was quite older than me. That brother should have been in his maybe middle 30s or late 30s at that time. He's the brother I have known all my life in church, in our local church, And I listened to him, and everything I was hearing was anger. I was angry as he was talking. And he just said, I came to tell you so that you have it in mind. Then he told me that because you entered university, I also had to go do some certificate programs because he wasn't a graduate. He had done certificate programs so that, our status can match. He had started a school business, bought the land for the school because he knew that since I studied English, I could manage the school. Look at plans. That was an intentional man right there. So he said, I'm telling you so that you can pray about it, so that God can also confirm to you that you're my wife. And he came with a gift, a phone, a mobile phone. That was going to be my first ever phone because that was 2004. My first ever phone and some money, which of course I refused because by my church standards, it was going to delay the marriage even if I wanted to agree. It's another case altogether. So I refused. And he said, okay, no worry, but don't tell anybody, but this is what I had. And he left. I was left with trying to pray that God, is it true that this brother is my husband? But for every time I wanted to pray that prayer, I was just angry. And I kept trying. I kept trying sincerely. I kept trying to say, okay, let me just pray and see if there's a way I can even connect to this brother, begin to accept this. It wasn't connecting. And I knew that God cannot give me something I cannot handle. God cannot give me stress, So I was invited to the marriage committee. A lot of other things happened. Like, I wish I had time, guys. A lot of other things happened because they found out he even came to talk to me. They sanctioned him from going ahead. A lot of things. When I was finally called to the marriage committee a year after I had done, I was just about to go for youth service, I think at that time. Almost 2 years after. Yeah. They said, oh, do you know this kind of brother has been on your case for like 7 years. This is the 7th year. He's been patiently waiting. What is God telling you about this? And I said, nothing. God did not tell me anything. I've tried to ask God. He's not telling me anything. They started becoming apprehensive. Like, oh, sister, you didn't get what we are saying. We mean that this brother has been waiting for you for 7 years. We cannot afford for him to get a no. And I said, but it is a no. So, you can imagine. That took a very bad dive. Members of church called me, since you've said no, at least pray for this brother so that his soul will not be grieved and all that. So I've gone through it all, guys. But the thing is that I was sure that it was not God. I was sure I didn't want to marry into that kind of system. I was sure of so many things, which I had already discussed with my father even. So that is part of why I had to leave home. I needed to backtrack to make you understand. So fast forward, I got into Abuja, found a job, 2008. And somebody else from my university who was not so close to me came one day and called me and said, oh, I need to come to Abuja to talk to you about something. And he came. I was 28. And he said, I'm the only son of my family. There's a pressure on me to get married. And they said I should choose the person or they will arrange for me. So my mind only went to the only good girl I knew. And he said, please, will you marry me so I can take the word back to my parents and we'll start making preparation? I said, So I hope you can see 3 scenarios of marriage. You're young, you're naive, and you're wondering how. This one, you're of age, you're happy, but the system you find yourself doesn't make sense. Because I feel the feeling, if this brother that came when I was 24, it means I can also marry him and church will tell him something to be doing that he can't hear from God himself. I didn't want that. Now, this one, on your marks, get set, marriage. Like, nah. So marriage as a project, we are not even friends. I don't even know. And in fact, that guy was touted to be a cultist when we were in school. So the image of him I had in my head was... But do you know the funny thing? His father was also a pastor. But he was the bad boy of a good man. And I said no. I said no again. So many times, ladies, I get that. You could have said a lot of no's, and then people feel, oh, you're too picky. Even my own mom told me, is it Jesus you want to marry? Pick somebody and marry. But I would say I was too sure of how that when the right person comes, I will know. That was one thing. I was also too afraid to jump into something that my mind clearly told me, you're not sure about this. What are you doing? Like I see people do that today, and I say, I don't know how you guys do, but it's, And I had kept myself away from all of those things into my 30s again. So there was no pressure. It's not like I've tried it here. So that idea is making me to want to follow. I was already, remember what I told you at the beginning? I used my life as an experiment. Let me see whether this thing works. So when they say, don't defile the bed, don't do this, if you follow it, will it work for you? And I'm a testimony to tell you that it works. It works. If you follow God's standards, it will work. Now, there's in that Ecclesiastic scripture said there's a time for everything, and sometimes the timing we are looking at is timing of another person. By the time I was to get married in 2020, I got married in 2020 during the pandemic. All of my siblings but one was married. We are 6. In fact, we are 7 because I have an older half-sister. 6 of them were married, or rather 5 of them were married, apart from our last one who was in his 20s at that time. I was the only person who was head, sort of, that was not married. But I didn't allow it to put a pressure on me. And all of those aunties that come and tell you, what is really happening? Who is the person? I went through all of that. But, God, I'm looking at my time and I'm like, when I was 30, I got engaged to another pastor's son who I had met in a conference. He wasn't in my town. He wasn't living in Abuja at that time. We were just talking, talking about God's glory and God's purpose. And I felt he was aligned to my ideals and values. And I agreed to marry him. The first time I got engaged, I was 30. And it was just on phone. I still remember that day. He was saying, oh my God, you say yes? Oh God. He started crying. I can't believe I'm now engaged to marry you. Oh my God. It was not a joke that time. I was really serious. Like I was, I was finally going to take home somebody to my father. I was 30. We courted, or let me say dated for 3.5 years. Everything on point, the way we wanted it. We didn't want to, we didn't hurt God. We didn't do anything God said we should not do. Nothing. 3.5 years. But when it got to the 3.5 year, it was obvious again that this was not it. Because first of all, he didn't want to get a job. He wanted to freelance. He was living with his cousin. He finally moved to Abuja to live with his cousin. Then he was abusive at some point. And I was excusing it. When we even got engaged, he asked me, okay, let me go and see your father, since I've talked with them a lot of time. And I was the one who bought the wine, the transport money, everything. And because I didn't have a lot of money, I couldn't go with him. So I just took all my savings and gave him. I said, use this one, buy wine. Use this one, buy this. Use this one, go to Port Harcourt and take your father. Then use this one, go to our house. So ladies, anyway, I know you know what I'm saying. Guys, yeah? Yes. I had a savior mindset too. I was a savior. I could, he's God's son. He will pick up. 3.5 years into the relationship, he refused to work. Let me even tell you where the abuse started. When I sent his CV, secretly, I prepared his CV, and I was sent to firms, because I was working at that time. When they call him for interview, instead of him to go, he will come here and say, it must be you that did it, because I haven't sent a CV to anybody. You don't believe in God's in the work God has given me. I said, what is the work? freelance graphic designer, amateur, speaking English, singing songs, it's okay, but it's not bad also to earn a living while you're doing it, Abby. So he became very abusive. Like every time, yeah, I told you that this is what I want to just work on myself. Let's build something. You're always sending my CV everywhere. So I knew that. In fact, I was in a wedding of a friend of mine in Abuja that day. They were getting married. And I remember very well, the lady was 5 years older than the guy. And it was one of the biggest weddings in our church in Abuja at that time. They were so in love. It was so and they are still married till today. Very lovely couple. I was in that wedding and I was sitting down and watching them take their vows. Meanwhile, that's the best part of marriage for me, or a wedding for me, that exchange of vows. Somehow, when I sit down in a wedding and I'm looking at people exchanging vows, I can tell whether they will last. I don't know what it is, but my predictions are always true. So I sat down there and as if somebody, just tapped me and said, if you were Esther standing there and now making vows to this your boyfriend now, will you be as happy as she is? So it dawned on me that it was a no. I had to call off that relationship and never looked back. And immediately I called him and said, after the wedding, I said, I'm not sure we should continue. He thought it was a joke. But for 1 second, I didn't miss that relationship. So it became obvious also on the other camp, like my mother's camp, that something is wrong with this girl. Then one day, my older sister came back and we had a family prayer. And there was a prophecy. It wasn't a prophecy, a revelation as we were praying, because we had some other pastors in that meeting and all that. And there was a revelation that something about my marital destiny had been tampered with before I was even, when I was born, as a newborn. Guys, are you ready for this story? I'm sorry I've exceeded my time. But you wanted to hear this story. And it's my first time ever. This is the first platform I'm telling this story. You see why I said that you're very special. So, in that meeting, they said, there's something that was done with your picture when you were a newborn by a family member. They mentioned the person. And that it had been said you will not get married, blah, blah, blah. And I remember one of the people leading prayer prayed for me seriously in that meeting. And after that prayer, I went back and said, me like this, that have been born again since when I was 9. And rededicated again when I was 16. A demon can be preventing my marriage. With all this, you thought, is that why I was saying no? They don't get me. And I was like, I was thrown into confusion. I said, maybe that's why nothing is working. But I kept praying and forgot about it and continued my life. By 2019, when it was exactly 12 years, I went to Abuja 2007. By 2019, my father took ill. He had stroke. My kind of work, I'm a publisher. I do influencing and all that. And my father was critically ill. Everybody had day jobs that wouldn't allow them to go stay with him and all that. So I sacrificed among my siblings and let me go back home to Aba and stay with my father. And the hospital he was taken to was not even in Aba. It was outskirts, like in Imo State, but in between those things. So I had to go. I took a knapsack, just put a few of my things and went. In my head, maybe max 1 week, I'll be back to my station. That's how I've not gone back till today. Wow. So I got to stay with my father from hospital when he was released. And at that time, we were transitioning them to move to Owerri, closer to my hometown. So we were going to leave our Aba house. We had lived in that house for 30-something years. So we felt it was good for us to remove them from that comfort zone and, just being in one place. So we just transitioned. I took all that time, to move them to the new house for him to recover, get into physiotherapy and all that. I just found that I couldn't go home. People were calling me, jobs. Jenny, are you available for this event? Are you available to do this? I said, I'm not in Abuja. If I will come back, I'll let you know. And that was how the jobs that I had, the clients I had, started drying up. For every time they called me and I'm not still back, jobs started drying up. But I didn't have the inclination to go back. I heard in my spirit, you will go to your husband's house from your father's house. I said, how? You will go to your husband's house from your father's house. At this time, I was 39. 2019, I was 39. Abina, we are counting my age together. And my mother was already at her wit's end. Like, this girl, I don't know what it is. And that was my first time of coming to stay with them for that length of time again. Since before, 12 years before. I kept hearing you go to your husband's house from your father's house. So as I was with them, cooking for them, running around, making sure my father, take my father to hospital visits. In July, that was in May of 2019. In July, just a few days after my birthday, a friend of mine who I had met just before I came back from Abuja, I had come home to Owerri from Abuja, called me and said, wait, is your mother from so and so? And he mentioned the exact place that my mother is from, in Abia State. I said, yes. I said, who told you? He said, wait. I had an encounter. This person is not so close to me in that sense. I said, okay. He said, did this happen? Have you ever heard that this happened about your marriage? And he mentioned that thing a prayer warrior said years before, over 10 years before. And I said, yes, I heard something like that. He said, I was in anyway, that guy too was one of the people just before I left that was saying, I think we should get married. He was divorced and all that. But I knew it was not going to happen. I didn't have any drive again, as usual. You know me, I don't know. I didn't have the drive, but so I didn't even tell him. I just knew that the communication would just dwindle away and he would forget it and face his life. He was one that was calling me. He said, he mentioned some deep things, mentioned my family, my maternal family heritage, mentioned the person who even, I was told in that prayer that was the one that took my baby picture to something. So I asked him, who told you these things? He said, I was sleeping. And it's as if, I thought it was real actually, which is why I called you immediately I woke up. It was as if it was real. They took me everywhere and told me this and this and this and this. But why I'm calling you is so that we can pray together. 2019. And I became very angry in my spirit. I said, God, so something is really going on. I remember I confronted my mother. I confronted my father. I asked them, is there anything, any story, why are you keeping secrets? So I made up my mind I was going to pray. No longer looking for anybody. So since I was still living with them, I started praying. July, August, let me tell you the kind of prayer so that it might also help somebody. I put my phone on alarm. That alarm is still in this phone. It might still ring. If I stay here till 9 o'clock, it will ring. When they say in the Bible, every 3 hours. So I pray by 12, but I start from 11:50. I start praying into the next hour. That way. So 3 hours, 3, 6, 9, 12. The midnight one, I will go downstairs because my parents' house are upstairs. I'll go downstairs and pack sand and come upstairs and keep. And when it's 11:30, God bless Pastor Nathaniel Bassi. His music that time was my anchor. I will start praising. I'll lock my door. My parents would have slept. I'll start praising. Immediately it's 12 on the dot. I will take the sand and pour out from the window from upstairs. And I'll be declaring that whoever that has ever been born or stepped on sand or what, those spiritual things. Nobody told me to do it too. I just knew that every day I wake up as I'm praying, the Spirit of God will say, do this, I will do that. Do this, do that. Do communion with water. Do communion with, I was just doing, praying. I wasn't praying for husband though. I was praying that God, this thing that was hidden from me, even though I've been born again. So it's somebody who can be born again and be in bondage. I wanted to get to the root of it. How can you be born again and some small demons that God created too are following you? Is there anybody that is a match to God? Maybe God created everything and anybody, even the devil. Is the devil the opposite of God? I say, God, you better tell me what is happening. So there are some demons that can be in charge of my life in an area. So that was my prayer. I wasn't even praying, God, show me a husband. I just say, God, untie this thing to me, unpack it so that I understand. This Christianity, is this scam? I can be saved. And somebody from anywhere is getting the same revelation I thought I had finished praying a decade ago. See, children of God, life is spiritual. I'm not sure you understand what I mean. It's not the kind of spiritual that until you come to church and meet Pastor Uche before you pray about it. It's the kind of thing that you're walking on the road and you're praying and they think you're mad. You are washing plates, you're crying and say, God, you see what he just did. You see this and I don't understand it. It's not the kind of prayer. It is that pray without ceasing type. Then in September, I had prayed 3 months now. It had become a lifestyle. You know, my phone will ring, I'll pray. I'll get into the mood and pray. And it became normal. I was warring with I remember that time, that song. And some other songs. September, I got a call from my husband. Now, let me tell you a bit of this. I'm going to wrap up in a bit. Pardon me. In IMSU, while I was a student, that my friend who got married, remember, who was his friend, was his and another guy's friend. They were all my seniors in university in that sense. He's just senior in university. Anyway, they were my seniors in university. So I used to see him whenever he comes to see his friends and all that. But we were not really close. I just knew him as that architecture guy that is always proud. They say he's the best student in his set. And he knows that he knows. I used to say he's proud. This is my husband. So that time, that's all I knew about him. We didn't even keep in touch after school and all that. But let me tell you something that happened. In 2018, which is a year before that extra revelation, which is a year after this story I want to tell you now that I reconnected with him. 2018, I was to come. Okay, I have a family heritage here in Uyo. I have my mom's aunties. So my grandmother's elder sister got married here in Oron. So we had that family here. So anytime we come to Uyo, even when we are children, like 60th birthday, 70th birthday, we used to come to Uyo. In fact, that was my earliest childhood experience of coming to Uyo. That we are coming to Mamu Uyo's birthday, you know. So that woman now died that year, 2018, and she was to be buried in April. And I was already a facilitator, trainer, and all that in Abuja. So I now planned a training for Uyo, Port Harcourt, and Enugu, since I was going to come to the east. You know that when you're in the north, the coming to the east is a project. So, the south. So I planned that, I will have a training in between that time I'm going to be here and all that. So I started marketing the training ahead of time. So he saw the training and said, you're going to be in Uyo. Oh, I would like to see you when you come. So I came. I and my friends were hanging out in the hotel where we were. Then I called him and told him where we were lodged and all that. He came briefly. Like, I'm not sure that thing was more than 10 minutes. He came to see me and said, how are you doing? Long time, since after school. Now, wow, so this is your face. You know, just normal chit-chat. But something again, I was to console him. A year before that time, 2017, he had lost his wife. And the only time I knew was through communication with other people. I said, was it wonderful? You know, so we are talking about it, and they're like, okay, yeah, so he lost his wife. So that was the first reconnection, and it was through WhatsApp message, I remember, before this 2018. So he had to come for me to say, how are you coping? How are the children and all that? So that 10 minutes, and he went away, and we continued our event. So now, fast forward again. See, just follow me. That meanwhile, am I a good storyteller? Because Pastor Chisom said I should tell this story. So 2019, now I was still praying. One of my WhatsApp messages, you know, just if you're on my WhatsApp, you will know. I can be, as I used to be very intentional about my messages, like I'm frequent as well. So it was one of those messages that got to him. And he said he read it and decided to call me. And said that he thought at that time he was ready to remarry. He had 4 children. One of them was a baby. The baby was just 13 days old when the mom passed. So that baby was about 2 years, or going to be 2 around that time. Okay, not yet 2 at that time. 2 years around that time. So he said, I've been reading from you, I've been keeping quiet, but something in me is really driving because I'm in the phase where I'm trying to make up my mind to remarry, and it's you that God is leading me to. I was like, what? From where to where? How? No, you did not see me. It's not me. Wait. Everything in my head was just like, how? How will I even handle 4 children? Do you understand? Where will I start? No. I don't think I'm fit for it. I said, I've never even taken care of 1 child before. Talk less of, I said, no. He kept asking me. I said, no. Instead, I'll find you somebody. I said, I know you like Igbo women. Abi? Because his late wife was also Igbo. And I said, okay, I found one of my friends who was a single mom who had a 6-year-old boy. And I felt, people like that can easily blend and just live their life. So I told Ami, I said, Ami, there's this my friend that is in Uyo. You will like him. He's very, very good. I've known him from university and all that. She said, okay, let me give it a try. So I connected them on phone. Ami is still in Abuja with me now. So he was here. Okay, well, at that time, I was in Owerisha. So they started talking. And every day I would try to follow up with him. Have you talking to her? How far? I'll call her, how far? For the first 1-2 weeks, he kept saying, we've not really had a good time to talk. Is it that she's busy when I'm busy? But she sounds like a good person. I said, keep following her up. I was coaching him seriously. Follow her up. I even added him to to a relationship group that one of my friends from Ghana was organizing. I said, Joy, you need to learn. Because you don't jump into marriage like that again. No. You have to take your time and be intentional this time. Because that was already what I was used to doing. That was already my ministry. I was helping men. I have a men's ministry called the Men Code Movement. It's on YouTube. So I was just really passionate about him getting it right and just being there, understanding woman. I'm very, the ministry minded. I feel people's pain, and I know, all of that. Anyway, so I told him, no, it can't be me. And about a month or 3 weeks after, if I'm correct, that my friend calls me and says, Jenny, there's something I want us to talk about. I said, okay, tell me, is it about the guy? What's up? He said, yes, but no. I said, waiting. He said, that guy is really nice. I said this, I told you. He's really nice. His work ethic is on point, and his children are lovely. But as I was trying, the more I try to talk to him, I'm loving him, I like him more. But the more my spirit is telling me, this is your husband instead, not mine. Yes, you heard me. She said, the spirit of God is telling me that this man is your own husband, not mine. I said, where do these kind of things happen? Like, I don't understand. And that time, I was trying to set her up to do business so that she can fend for her child. I was like, you see marriage now, it's not my own. You don't know the bombshell. Days later, he chatted me up and said, I said, how far? He said, I've been chatting with her. She's really nice and all that. But remember now, I look for, not her. That even though she's nice, it's still you. So the two of them were collaborating. You know what I did? I beg, you're not serious. I beg, leave me. I've tried my best. I like to matchmake people. I said, I tried my best. If I try to matchmake you, agree. Leave him now. Abi, I go kill myself. So I told him, no, he shouldn't even talk about it. I can't handle 4 kids and that kind of marriage. I don't know how to navigate it. I continued with my prayer. September, October, November, December, I was praying. Praying for that. I was praying, guys. And let me tell you why it is important to pray. When you pray, you may feel like something is not happening. Many things are happening. Hey, the things that are happening, you may not know it too. Because if God allows you to see 1% of the things He's fighting for you, you go just say, God, take me. I beg. I didn't know that this life was this hard. I didn't know. In my mind, I was like, moved on. In fact, I had 3 people on my case towards the end of the year, 2019. Now, this was me now. I didn't have events to go, and my friends are not there. I was new in a new city, just with my aged parents. So at the point, I have been out there in Abuja doing events, working with government, doing blogging, doing training. They don't see me marry. I can't come inside house where I just go, cook, come back, take care of my father, massage his leg, cook, put off life, lock gate. Now they can't pursue me. 3 people were on my case. 1 was also a pastor. 2, in fact, almost all, I'm always in that pastors and pastors' kids thing. I don't know. December, I remember that December, I was so happy. I went to by the 31st, I went to the village with my father. He was a bit recovered. It was so exciting. January came. I was now 39 years, 7 months. You're counting with me, right? And I was feeling like a baby girl, trust me. I didn't feel like anything. At that point, in fact, I didn't even tell you one part. So I said that this story is hard. Before I came to Owerri, I had told God that I didn't want the marriage again. Hold your marriage. I don't want again. And I told my mom when I came back, I said, Mommy, stop telling me about marriage. Not everybody will get married. Let's just do ministry. Let's love on God. My mother said, God forbid. Stop saying that. Stop saying that about yourself. So look at me. It was January of 2020, February like this. This is actually our anniversary of meeting this month. And my anniversary of engagement as well. Because we got engaged officially on the 29th of February. That year had 29th, you know. So on the 5th of February, one of my messages also went out, broadcast. And he came back again and said, Jenny, it's been 6 months since I asked you to marry me. And I'm still waiting. Men and brethren, you will not believe what happened. I didn't feel even 1% of how I felt in September of the previous year. I felt like, sounds like it. Oh, I'm ready. Oh, it's true. He even has 4 children. They'll be so beautiful around me. All of a sudden, everything I saw as baggage became interesting, became colorful. That's why I told you, when you're praying, you look at nothing is happening. God was working on me. I was the kind of lady that I've kept myself to my 30s. I can't marry baggage. I can't take, divorced, a widowed, not me. I had to have cha-cha guy. And it had to be some specifics, you know. So I was already like, Jesus, baby girl. Jesus, no, you can't disappoint me, God. It has to be a type of. So in my head, people that were divorced and widowed and had children have baggages. But by this February of 2020, it looked like, wait, the guy is even an architect. Wait. Are you understanding? You have always wanted to do real estate. This is somebody that is already there. Has 4 beautiful children. Oh, the day he did a video call and put the children on call, that was the day I was finished. And I think it was on the 6th of February. We started talking on the 5th. And he said, tell me now. I said, I can't give you any answer yet. Then we started this marathon talk. That's what he was saying in his talk show. He will wake up every day. We talk all through the night, morning. I started enjoying talking with this person that I hardly really knew, when I was in university. And everything me said, whenever he drops the call, I would say, God, is it the one? Is it the one? Everything was just, as if God was just smiling at me. So, baby girl, just go and enjoy. Go now, stop. You know, it felt so right. Everything was in place. I remember the VAlentine of that year, on the 14th like this, I was invited to a church, an apostolic church in Owerri to speak. And I was all giggly. They didn't understand why. I had just gotten engaged like a few days after. On the phone, no. You know, because I hadn't seen him. He was still here. So some people that also think that, until you come and see me, it cannot happen. Love can happen on phone. I'm telling you. Don't rule it out. It can happen on phone that when you now see, it looks as if you have known each other forever. So, we spoke from 5th to 12th, a whole week. It was on that 12th, he said, tell me now, I've been asking you since. He told me everything about his family, everything that happened, how he even got married, everything that happened from when we left school to getting married, to giving birth to all, what happened to his wife. And that was the time I even asked him, so what really happened to her? Oh, what happened, And I said, okay, I'll marry you on the 12th of February. I can't forget. So on the 15th, after my speaking engagement, like a night like this, the next day I told my parents that, Daddy, just give me 1 day break. I'm coming. Let me go and see somebody. He said, I think he was excited. Maybe God spoke to you. I don't know. Because my father was just excited. I said, okay, go now. Will you see your sister when you're going? I said, yes, I will see her. I just went. I came to Uyo. First time I'm coming to Uyo alone, in that sense. And I came to meet my family now. I saw all of them. We went out. I remember that day they took me to different places, Tropicana. We went to the Choice, some places. And it just felt like, when a woman leaves her children for a while and travels and comes back, that craving you have, it felt like, my children, where have I been? God did the surgery in such a way that if people look at me now, they don't even tell you. If I didn't tell you, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know. So on that same month, my husband is an action man. 12th, I agreed. I came to you and left the next day, or 2 days after. Okay, because I came in like an evening like this. Then the next day he took me to see his parents. Drama happened. As I came in, his father stood up and said, "She's the one." This is a 91-year-old man. He stood up and said, "Come and sit on my laps. Come and do. Oh yeah, you are the one." In fact, I wish I had time to explain to you people. I was just like, as if they knew me already before I came. They said the old man had seen other people who, some people say, maybe we can suggest this one for him so they can help him take care of these children. The old man will say, this is not the person. This person will break my son's heart. But I came and he said, she's the one that God told me. It's you. So I was to leave the next day. They gave me wine, gave me money. His mom gave me money and said, take and buy extra wine. Tell your parents that we are sending our regards to them. So see me going back to Owerri. I was wondering, how am I going to tell my parents that I didn't just go to see somebody, that some people, because they'll be wondering, you've been inside this house with us in a cocoon. How did marriage and, how did everything just enter this talk now? The marriage now. So on the way, as I was going back to Owerri, I called my brother who was also in Owerri and the one that was living in Aba still. I said, I beg you, push you come. There's sometimes as I want to go and tell daddy, just come with me so people hear it at once. They say, They came that same evening with wine. I told my father, that there's something I want to say. My brothers came. I started explaining to them how I've been talking with this friend on phone, which is why I went to, my father was looking at me. He said, what is his name? He didn't allow me to finish. He said, what is his name? I told him, Utibe Aka. He said, he's the one. Exactly the same reaction his father had when I came. I said, Daddy, I don't understand how. I'm still telling you the story. He said, no. For 2 months, I've been battling in this house. I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want you to get defensive or say that he said, but the name sounded like an Igbo man that God showed me. I said, it's Aka now, A-K-A-H. It sounded like an Igbo name because Aka is Aka in Igbo. So God showed him everything, showed him the name of the man. So he started to touch with another, and he kept seeing 4 children, which is why he didn't want to tell me. He kept seeing 4 children coming to hug me. So when he wakes up from his trance, he will say, I don't know, this 80 years that I'm clocking, I don't know if it's a nightmare. But he kept happening repeatedly. But he didn't want to tell me because how will he explain it? So he felt that in his mind, maybe God will soon give me a husband and we're going to have 4 children. So he left it. So my father was not the one telling the story by himself. He said, this is what I saw, this is what I saw, this is what I saw. As he told me, I knew it was the confirmation. So my father said, ask them when they want to come. I said, Daddy, they actually say I should ask you when you want them to come. So he said, the next 2 Saturdays from now is okay. And that was 29th of February. And they came, him and his friends, people in academia, university lecturers. It was like a proper traditional wedding. But it was just engagement too. That's how I got married, my people. So between February and June, pandemic now started a month after, like March. They now started doing lockdown, like seriously here. So I was talking over there, he was stuck here. But I was on phone with my children. Have you eaten? Go and bring water. It was as if I was here with them. Thank God for video call. And that was how I started being a mother before I even became a mother. So any small window of lockdown, the small window we had in June, they came, all his people came to my village and did the traditional wedding. They drove me back to Yoda. They started feeling like, so is that how? So I'm married now, just like that. From talking with somebody 4 months ago till now. And God has been faithful in capital letters. So that's my story in a nutshell. Did any part of it minister to you in any way? Did any of it minister to you in any way? Thank you very much.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir, for allowing her to give us a lowdown of this. You know, when I told her what I was thinking about this meeting, she just told me a few days ago she was even thinking of putting this story in a book. All right? And me bringing it up was like a connect with what was already in her heart. But listen to this. The reason for stories is to take you through what happened, the actions that were taken, and the outcome. All right? For whatever God does, he can do it again. For whatever God does, he can do it again. That makes him a master. Praise the Lord. You can be here and you are in the borders of certain age that makes you feel concerned. You see, there is nothing, even when one feels concerned here, God is not concerned. You know, God feels it, but he's not moved. Now, the concern I mean is worried. All right, worried. He has his hand over every process. But all that he wants from you is to collaborate with him. Everything that she did was to align, to collaborate with God, and everything just came into shape. All right? Rather than worry, talk to God. Rather than worry, engage God. Praise the Lord. Engage God. And by the time it is being done for you, it is even more beautiful than what you had thought. You see, right now, like she shared, right now, you may be seeing men like trees. You know how, Jesus tried to heal the blind eyes. And when he asked the man, how do you see? After using spittle and putting on, how do you see? Say, I see men like trees. Okay, he still have one more work to do. All right, still have one more work to do. So the time of extended prayer was the time God was doing surgery. I like the word you used. Many times we go through delays, and I have often said that God is not in a delay. The reason for delays is challenge and alignment. The instant a man aligns with the plan of God, it happens. So the delay happens because a man chooses to go this way. Why God wants him to go this way? So until the man comes like this, it will continue to delay. All right? So prayer was so pivotal in her story, which I want to encourage everybody to do. When you have seen certain things linger and linger and linger, please do not think that God is teaching you any lesson. He's not teaching you any lesson. He's waiting for you to align with him. So he is working on things that you have been seeing wrongly.